Most, I am honored to have Dr. Forbes Riley in the house. Welcome.
Well, thank you, thank you.
You
I've not
are,
been to Australia yet. It's on my bucket list, and I cannot wait to get down there and visit. I have a lot of friends there.
oh, you need to. Well, you can hear my accent. It's originally from Britain, but I've lived here 20 years and I would not go back for the weather if you paid me.
That's how I feel about upstate New York, where I went to college. I would never go back. I barely like to ski anymore.
Well, I am so excited about this episode, and I was so everything about the Imperfectly Perfect campaign, and I speak about this question towards the end of it, but I want to ask you at the start, Forbes, right? It's a pivotal question around mental well-being and everything you've been through in your career. What does being imperfectly perfect mean to you?
Oh, you are asking the right person. Can I share my screen? I'm going to share something with you. The fact that embrace and love this idea of imperfectly perfect is how I started my entire life. So let me, if I can, share, and I will show you something. When I was younger, I we've kind of concluded I was a thumb sucker. Remember those days? But something happened to my entire jaw, and I was a little kid. I'm just going to share something really quick, which I think is kind of kicky. Um, and there we go. Let's see if that works. It does.
Yep.
So that would be my dad grew up in a very small house in suburban New York, right on the water, about literally outside of New York City. I don't think we realized back then that we were that close to New York. Like it was kind of a rundown area, and now the apartments are so expensive where I lived. But I had great parents. But when I got to elementary school, they noticed something was really wrong with my mouth. And as a little girl, I just wanted to be pretty. I watched a lot of television and movies and went to the Oscars in my mind. And when I got to elementary school, they decided to put me in a set of braces. Well, this was my teeth, by the way. My mother is a Ukrainian immigrant who was definitely a hoarder. She kept everything. This is from 1968. I still have it. That's and it's pretty nasty. If you've got a little girl, that's not what you want her mouth to look like. And so they put me in braces. And have you ever had braces?
I haven't, no.
Oh, well, you're one of the lucky ones. So, and most people have braces, not a big deal for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. You're like, okay, I'm always going to have a mouth over and the headbands and the rubber bands. And I was always in pain and always moving something. And then my doctor decided to put me in this thing. He screwed it into the top of my mouth. And so, Glenn, I talked like this for 2 years. And nobody could understand a single word that I said. And when you take communication away, talk about being imperfect, you can't communicate your ideas. You can point, you can smile and wave, you can write things down, and you watch other people say stupid shit, like a lot of it, like gossip and whatever. And you're like, if I could only talk, and nothing came out. I didn't realize the impact it would have on me. Well, beyond that though, is I had broken my nose. And there was a thing about being pretty. Do you know who Marsha Brady was from the Brady Bunch?
I do, yes. Yes.
Blonde hair. My hair went like this. It was a triangle from the back if it was humid out. And then you turn around, it's like, oh, what's going on here? And then I'd smile and we'd get all kind of messy. And Marsha Brady, who had the prettiest face, she got hit in the face with a football one day and didn't get to go to the prom. Like it was a big deal that she had a bad looking nose. So I knew I was ugly. Doesn't help. And then I'm also overweight. My mom was 260 pounds my whole life. She loved us with food. And then if matters were not bad enough, my father slipped. He was a printer and he tore off the whole front of his hand. And this is a man who's very artistic and an innovator and a magician. So this was a big deal for us. Spent 3 years in the hospital. And while we're in the hospital, my mother says to me, kiddo, we have no money for college. We're totally broke. And I'm like, that's like the only dream I really could have had. And aside from wanting to be an actress and pretending to be in movies and stuff. And when she said that, my life changed. Because the first thing she said was, there's a beauty pageant in town and it's not going to work for us. And there's nothing like the woman that you cherish the most telling you that you're not pretty enough. Like everything I thought, like people go, oh, you're not pretty. No, trust me, it was really bad. So but braces finally came off as we're having this conversation, and my dad's doctor turns to my mother and says, you know what, we're going to fix her nose. And in 1975, nobody was doing this. There was no Kris Jenner out there leading the way for facelifts. And I just did it because I couldn't breathe, and it was and he offered it for free because we were so destitute. And the weirdest thing happened. Then I woke up the next day and I looked completely different. This little nose on my face apparently kept my eyes from looking really big and my smile from turning the right side up. And I looked at this girl in the mirror and I said to her, we're going to enter a competition. We're going to college. No one's stopping us. And it was a very weird moment where I kind of like separated into this side of me that's going to have this conversation. I've spent a lot of time alone having these conversations. I have a representation of what my dad's doctor looked like, but I entered the competition in a hand-me-down bridesmaid's dress. I wanted to win so bad for my parents, and I did. And I became Miss Teenage New York, who then went on to the nationals. I mean, I went from ugly as trash. I'm going to a national beauty competition on TV with Bob Hope.
Wow.
And there, and then the best part is I did graduate college. There's my beautiful mother. And then I decided that I was not going to be a lawyer, but that I was going to follow my impossible dreams because it made sense. And I said, Mom, I'm going to New York to be an actress. She was crying. She said, I can't help you. We can't afford to help you. I'm like, I know, I got this. That woman on the right has starred in television shows and soap operas and worked her entire life, comedy clubs, started the X Games, started the idea of infomercials. Whatever it is that I created from that energy, that being not perfect was a life changer and became my purpose in life.
That is an incredible story. Truly is. I mean, I have followed you for so long and I've watched and taken in so much wisdom from everything you've done in business. But this is what I'm about. I love the story behind it. So through that change, what did it just do integrally to you? Just gave you that utter drive and confidence?
It's interesting when the outside matches the inside. And as I'm going along life's journey, I'm having some very interesting revelations. I just turned 65. Have you seen a picture of my husband?
I have, yes.
So this is the irony of my life, which I love. I absolutely think that, I signed up to watch a movie at birth and I wanted to watch a really spectacular movie. In fact, I told my mother this. When I was 20 years old, I just graduated college. I skipped a year of high school, skipped a year of college. I was very weirdly smart. That's part of and I have to say, I had that. There's something about, and not really book smart, even though I was a top A student, I can look at any situation and see things other people don't see. I've been doing that forever. And I remember it was so pervasive that when I was 12 years old in sixth grade, I don't ever really tell this story, but not being just smart that you could see things adults didn't see. We were offered as kids that you could take advanced math, advanced science, or a language, 2 of the 3. And I'm 12 years old and I walked into the guidance counselor's office and said, why can't I take all 3? I'm an A student. And she said, no, you can only choose 2 of the 3. I said, but I'm bored in school. I would like to take all 3. And the adults looked at each other going, okay, if that's what you want. It. The next thing that happened was when they wanted to skip a grade for me, and they said, well, you can, so high school in the US is 9, 10, 11, and 12th grade. They said, well, you can just graduate early. I said, I don't know what you adults are thinking, but senior year is the year that you want. Why would I graduate early and blow that? Why don't I just go into the higher homeroom? Like instead of going into 9th grade homeroom, go right into 10th grade. They did that too. And I remember thinking, why am I the one who sees this? And you guys adults don't see this. Then I graduated college with 2 degrees in just 3 years. Most people don't do 1 in 4.
No.
And I did that because, again, I could see things that other people didn't see. I could see how to arrange classes and do all this. And I'm like, I even remember walking to one of my guidance counselors in college, and I booked myself a trip to Greece. Like I could do a semester. I didn't do it, but I wanted to see if I could. Yeah. And I got it. And I'm like, okay, I've always managed to get these things. But the thing that changed my life, and this was, again, changing my life apparently has happened a lot to get to here. But these were monumental shifts in what I thought the focus was. So any entrepreneur listening to this, you think you're going down one way. My advice to you was be flexible enough that when the wind blows, course correct. Mm-hmm. Don't fight it. Go, no, just go, I'm going to course correct because there's genius on the other side of this. When things don't go perfect. My motto is don't let the perfect ruin the good. So another story for me, I wanted to be this actress on TV, right? I would audition for high school plays. We did 6 of them a year. Glenn, you know what I got? I got townsperson number 3. I got chorus. I got the dancer in the back. I never had a line, never had a name, never had much of anything. And I kept thinking, but I couldn't do this. I'm in college. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm on this track. Very smart, very educated. And I auditioned for the lead in our audition for the senior play that we were doing, Shakespeare's As You Like It. The biggest role that he wrote for a woman. Her name is Rosalind. She's on stage. She plays a boy. She manipulates people. She's an amazing character. I auditioned thinking at least I'll be in the senior play. And I get to the call board and I'm looking at townsperson and chorus and I'm not anywhere there. And I thought, man, it's really tough when you compete at a college level. All right, so what lucky girl got the lead role? And I look up at the very top, Rosalind, and there's my name. And I remember thinking, I think somebody made a mistake. It didn't even, I'm like, so I went to the Professor David Richmond, the only professor's name I do remember. And I said, help me understand. I think, really? And he's like, you're my ideal Rosalind. He said, the way that you communicate, the things that you've been through, the blah, 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 blah. And then he started telling me all of these things in my heart that I knew that no one else had ever seen. They were focused on my thighs or my nose or my hair, whatever bullshit they thought about me. And here's the crazy thing about Professor David Richmond. This sounds like a movie I wrote. He was 100% legally blind.
Whoa.
He couldn't see all the shit that anyone had ever seen. He only saw the real me. The play was a raging success, and based on his belief in me, I called my folks and said, I'm going to New York. And I did, and I landed the lead in my very first feature film. That film was called Splatter University, a slasher 80s film. You've probably never seen it, but it's out. It has its own Facebook page. Fans love it. I love the character. Her name is Julie Parker. I wish that I had continued and gotten a better agent to make this career move forward. I did a first couple of movies and soap operas, and then I had other issues. But the issues, I believe, that I get to tell my story, and thank God I get to do it, is for other people. I suffered with my weight my entire time on Broadway, on soap operas. They sent me to Overeaters Anonymous. They put me on every diet, from the Scarsdale to the noodle diet. You name it, I went on it, and I screwed up all of them. Turns out I was an emotional eater. It didn't matter what diet you put me on. I was never going to be that skinny. I standing next to Meg Ryan and Julianne Moore on As the World Turns. And here's the thing, Glenn. Is this mouse fat? It's just a mouse, right?
Mm.
But if you put a mouse next to a pen, the mouse looks fat. And that happened to me. I was pretty average weight. You put me next to somebody who's 15 pounds underweight, and I'm got to go on a diet. And I couldn't do it. I had other issues and again, fast forward 40 years, I teach and coach. I talk about weight loss. I have a weight loss program. I created a fitness product that has sold millions. I'm married to a bodybuilder. So all of the things that look like absolute seaweed going, what is this? Where's my life? Became my life. And I've never said this one before, but it really does feel like my mess became the message. Mm-hmm. And it's not for me. I got the lessons, but it's for my 2 kids. And it's for everybody, like you said, who listens to what I do, to what I talk about. Because if I'm still here after all of this, and that's not all of it. The story involves murder and not one. The story is like this fantastical story. But I was going to tell you earlier, my mom was a bit of an agoraphobic. She didn't really like to leave the house, never traveled out of the country. And when I was 20, I graduated school and I found Arthur Firm's Europe on $20 a day. And there's 2 very different kind of people on this planet. There's the ones that feel obsessed to go and see the world and touch objects that are in China and Vietnam and Himalayas. And then the rest of the people like, I'm staying in my house. We don't need to go 100 miles outside of our town. We're comfortable. Yep. That was my mom. But I could, through the TV, see that everybody didn't think like my mother did. And I got this book and I said, Mom, I have a game plan. I just done my first movie. I had $2,000 in my pocket, thought I was rich. And I said, I'm going to Europe and I'm going to see all of these things and tear out the pages when I'm seeing them and come home when I have just the cover. That was my game plan. I went by myself, me, a Walkman, and a big old camera. I spent 6 months there. I couldn't have traveled, and I wrote a diary and I took photos and I was living my movie. And I did live a movie. I jumped off a train in Figueroa, Spain to see a Salvador Dali museum. I did some stupid, crazy stuff because in my mind, I had to write this amazing story of my life. I said to my mom, she's like, why are you going? And she was crying. I'm like, because Mom, I had this vision that I'm going to be telling the most fantastical story of my life. And I have nothing to talk about. So I've got to go write it. And that has been my motive for most of my life, even especially through the bad things, that I'm imagining writing this story that was for somebody else's benefit.
I love that. You're such an incredible storyteller because you've gone through so much, but I wish this world would see, and I'm going to ask you a question alluding to this, how important their story is. Because we know these days with social media, a lot's highlight and smoke and mirrors, and you're so transparent and you share the vulnerable parts of your life. How important is it for people to share their stories to reach their people?
Well, here's another part of this. Ironically, I teach something that's the exact opposite of this about trauma healing, where you want to take your past. In fact, let me ask you a question, and maybe your audience can do this. Glenn, if you were to put your past in space, where would you put it?
In
Where is
space,
it? Yeah,
at
where's
the
your
back,
past?
at the back of me.
Okay, what is interesting, you didn't even, okay, so that's true. And by the way, it's not in the back of you. Take your hand like that from if you're watching this and take your past and freaking push it back where it belongs. No, but all the way back there, fingertip. Now, where's your future?
Ahead of me.
Well, I would put them in the same plane. Don't do that because that's kind of crooked. But
Okay.
I would put my past and my future. I know you have a background, but you
Yep.
guys, I talk to many people and they'll do this. My past is right here. They're talking about their past. They're writing their past. If your past is here and you did that instinctively, you're right. And it's keeping you from a great future. Take that hand and literally take your past, your mom and daddy trauma, the trauma of a bully at school, breaking whatever it was, again, push it all the way back where it belongs so that if you want to tell the stories, you can go back and choose them, but it doesn't control you and it doesn't live up here. Literally, just 2 days ago, I had a new student do this. And she said, well, my past is here. It's kind of, I'm focused on it, my future. And I'm like looking at her going, sweetheart, turn your hands around.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I get it. I get it. I've been literally hitting my head against a wall. And I'm like, yes, that's how simple it can be because your brain is in charge of a lot of the conclusions that you come about life, the way you communicate to the world. And if you can align what you want with what you want, you will get it. If
Yeah.
you're constantly hitting your head against a wall, things need to change. But you also, see, I tell these stories, Glenn, but I've done massive self development. So I started when I was 31 years old to unpack the story of this woman's life, of all the issues that I thought I had, of all the trauma that I went through. And you are like an onion. You will get off part of that trauma, and then you go, oh, I forgot about that one. Oh, and maybe that's, and by the way, trauma does not have to necessarily be a rape or a murder. Trauma, like one of my students, she came to me, she's a CEO of a company, she's 52 years old, and she said, they're going to fire me. I said, what? I said, you're good at what you do. She said, yeah, I'm really good CEO, but I can't speak. So what do you mean? She's like, I get up to give these quarterly reports and my hands sweat and I just get nervous and I want to throw up. So I asked her a couple of questions. You know what we concluded? She was 7 years old. She gave a book report in second grade. She got up and she got so nervous she peed on herself. The kids all laughed at her. The teacher didn't help her. And she made a decision at that moment that says, I'm never going to speak. Speaking is dangerous I'm no, I can't do it. I don't want to speak. So now imagine she's 52 and this little voice inside of her going, don't do that. That's dangerous. That's going to make you pee on yourself. And so she has this conflict. Well, we just went in psychologically because neither of these memories are real. And we just shifted what happened. We did a little procedure that I do called breakthrough. Poof. And the next thing you know, she's become a TEDx speaker and she's like got a raise. And I'm like, congratulations, you let that part of your past go. She can tell the story now, but there's no trigger attached to it.
Yep. Yep.
We can't move forward in life effectively if we let our 4-year-old drive our car.
So true, so true. I went through my whole stuff myself. I mean, everything that I've achieved is incredible, but I attached my worth. And it was funny because I took it back to mine and I was like, why don't I feel worthy enough? All the success that's come from it, the external stuff, I never felt it inside until I worked on myself. So that's important. But with you, it kind of, even though you said the things about your mother, because mine actually came from something one of my parents said, like, Glenn, when's enough enough? Like, when have you finished with what you're doing? And I'm like, what? It couldn't be like, good on you, Glenn, keep going, keep going. It was so with your mum doing that to you when it came to the pageant's not for you, Forbes. you must have had that strong sense of worth early on in your age to know that yes, you had the street smarts, you had the acumen, but what else was there? That's God gift that early on.
Well, I was annoyingly smart. And it's like I have a thing I in with my second grade principal. I'm 7 years old, doing linguistics with my principal. So I went to my first grade teacher's wedding. Like, I'm not quite sure, objectively looking at this little girl, I was a bit of an anomaly. And just, I don't know how it all happened. Like, skipping grades and doing what I did, and then I created a lot. But because in my head, I just imagined that I was supposed to be doing this. This is a couple of fun things. I'd given myself permission to feel special. Now, special as an outcast is still special. We call it special ed for a reason. And I was different, and I knew I was different. But I could just feel something was supposed to happen with this life. I don't know why. I cannot explain that part of it. I've always been my own best friend. I don't have a lot of friends. Now, I just don't. I have a lot of people that I know thousands and thousands of people, and most people feel very warm and fuzzy around me because I do love on people, but I'm quite an introvert, which is the irony of what people think. If you're looking at me, you're like, you're not going to take action because like, oh, she can just do it. She feels comfortable up on stage. You guys, nobody feels comfortable up on stage. Beyonce throws up before she does a performance. It's an illusion. We look confident because we practice it enough or rehearse it enough or just have a belief in ourselves that our message is bigger than us. But whenever you do this, there's a level of anxiety. I just harness it and love it and feel like, why is that not my birthright? So this permission thing is a real important thing too, to just believe that you are enough. Because you can go around and put yourself down all you want, but you know what? People are going to do that for you. I would take a different turn. I just did this. Talk about perfectly imperfect. What is the perfect marriage? What is the perfect relationship? What is the perfect freaking fucking anything? Sorry. And I mean that because I share something. There's a level of perfection that you can strive for, and you should always strive for. What is your level best? What is your level of excellence is what I call it, rather than perfection, because you don't ever achieve a perfection. But there's somebody on the planet who did, and this is pretty funny. And again, if I'm viewing my life as a movie, what are the lessons I get to learn? So I have a little joke, not a joke, but a little thing I play with people. They want to see a picture of my husband. Okay. I say, Glenn, when you look at a picture of him, if you don't say, wow, I'll give you $100. Okay, that seems fair?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so then I will simply take out my phone and show you this picture.
Wow. Incredible. It looks incredible.
Wow. There's no other word to say besides wow.
Yeah.
And that's Joshua. And people will say, oh, that's AI. And then he'll walk in. I was
just going to say, someone would say that these days, wouldn't it? It's AI.
Oh, but more than AI. So I posted a picture of him and I'm rather proud of him. I mean, he's spectacular looking, but I also lived with him through this, where he was hit on his motorcycle, and spent 6 months in a wheelchair and shrunk down to nothing. Wow. And still loved him. And then he built his body back because he's such a world champion that he had not yet won the Olympia. He had not yet won the first place in the Arnold. This is after the accident. So I'm telling him that his life story is, Joshua, you're the comeback kid. To look like that after what you look like, people should hear this story to know it's possible, because you created a miracle over here and you built something really powerful. Now, the other side of this, so I posted a picture of me, Glenn, 380 comments. Half of them were wonderful. It was a birthday message to Joshua. The other half were, who does that woman think she is? How can, that's AI. That can't be real. She should date someone her own age. It went on and on and on. And I think the group is like 50 and fabulous. I'm like, you guys are 50 and catty. What the fuck? What's wrong with you? I wouldn't talk with somebody with those veins. I'm like, can your husband even see his toes because his belly is so big? What are we talking about? You're worried about my husband's veins. Thank you so much for giving me your nasty 2 cents, you Karen. Wow. And I'm looking at this going, we don't like perfect. We're jealous of perfect because none of us are. And even Joshua, like I said, he walks with a limp. He has his own issues. But the fact that people were so mean to think that this man, he's like, he could choose anybody. She's with her because she's got money. And I'm like, Yeah, that's lasted 8 years. You're going to put up with me because I don't care how much money I have. You wouldn't want to put up with me for it. Trust me on this one. And so I don't quite understand. We strive for perfection. No one ever gets it. We're not perfect, but why do we care so much?
Yeah, I think that with your husband, especially my story, my background, being in fitness for 20 years, so the resilience that that guy has, Joshua has, I went through body dysmorphia and kept it quiet. And when I opened up about it, which is the genesis of IPC, the amount in bodybuilding that utterly go through that, the resilience that after having the dedication, and I can only imagine when he had the accident the mindset that he had to get through because that in itself, seeing your body go from that to that. I train in LA a lot at Gold's Gym and I know most of them and
Yeah.
they're messed up in the head a lot of the times because it's unobtainable all the time, especially after an accident. So how did you kind of coach your husband through those times? Because it's harder because people don't want to listen to the loved ones, do they? It's even harder at times.
Well, we have another side to this story. I didn't realize you had a fitness background. I didn't coach Joshua through this. I let that man walk through his journey, and this was 2020. And it was the time that Clubhouse came out. And Clubhouse was an app that was audio only and was growing rapidly. And I became a superstar on the app because one, you didn't have to wear makeup. And during COVID, I'd had enough of doing my hair and doing my makeup. And I thought, you know what? And when he was busy being depressed, I would talk for 18 hours a day. I found groups. I had 175,000 members who were active. We talked every day, all day. I crafted some of my speeches. I crafted some of my teaching because I was just like, I needed to communicate. And being an introvert, this phone to millions of people
Yeah.
was like an unbelievable outlet for me, for my self-esteem, for what, and I was loved on massively. And then out of that came a world tour. I'd send one night because I was getting my speaking was really polished at this point. And I've spoken on Grant Cardone's stage in front of 10,000 people, and I've done a bunch of really big things. But I enjoy this speaking and finding my own way. And by the way, nobody wakes up, goes, I've got a message and I know how to speak about it. I went and watched Les Brown in my early 30s and thought, that's good. I'd love to do that, but I have nothing to say. I'm an actress who says other people's words. How the heck do you say your own thing on that stage? And it's been an evolution of 30 years of finding the message and sometimes not finding the message on stage, but knowing you still want to do it. And it's always been fun. And then I discovered my big secret is because I can pitch and I've been so successful on television that getting on stage and pitching means I can make about $500,000 in an hour where a paid speaker is making 50,000. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I've got a freaking superpower. You mix speaking and pitching and nobody gets to see you pitch. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but I just booked a TEDx talk.
Yeah, it's
And
done.
and the crazy thing about that is when I first applied for TEDx 7 years ago, I had the same story. It was about pitching. They called me and yelled at me. They're like, we don't want you to pitch here. There's no pitching allowed. I'm like, no. I'm not pitching on your stage. That no. We know you, infomercial girl. You're going to try and sell something and we don't allow that. I'm like, what the I'm not going to, I know how to do a speech. And for 7 years, I was like, well, screw it. I don't need to, I got yelled at. And so this last year I applied again and then I got 85 rejections. Just to be clear, it's not always so easy over here. It's not like people enjoying, oh, she's in the room. I got all these rejections and I thought, fuck, I'm just forget it. You know what? And then I got in April my first acceptance and it was in Nova Scotia, Canada. And I'm like, oh my God, I got it. And then I got one for St. Pete, my home right here. Then I got one for New Jersey. And then I got two more. Now, and I looked up the rules. I'm like, can you do more than one? Can you do five? Well, you don't want to do five. You have to do a completely different speech. And the irony of life, remember I said this is a movie? I got what I was supposed to get. So the first one is here in St. Pete, which is wonderful. It's called St. Pete Women. And I'm in business with my daughter. My daughter's 22 years old. She's just starting out. Now, to do TEDx, you have to apply. It's a long process. You have to go through a screening and then one out of every, like 150 applicants. I finally got my TEDx, right? I called the woman at St. Pete where our home is. And I said to her, you might want to meet my daughter. She is a business owner at St. Pete Women. She might help out and get she's great at marketing and help you. Glenn, do you have kids?
I do too.
How old?
7 and 12.
Just wait. An hour later, I get a phone call from my daughter. She's like, Mom, I'm like, what? She's like, I just booked a TEDx talk.
What? And you've been,
What? What? Wait. She's like, well, the applications were closed, but when I got on the phone with her, I did what you taught me. I pitched her what I'm up to, and she said yes. I'm like,
wow.
oh my, so we're making history. There's never been a mother and a daughter on the same TEDx stage. We're not speaking together. She's doing her own thing, but it's like, what a beautiful, now, as if that's not good enough. And because it would have been just fine doing that. New Jersey called and said, we'd like you to do a talk here. And New Jersey's theme was urban mosaic. And I happen to have a story that I'm going to tell you, the universe just wants me to share. Because if I don't do it on this kind of a stage, no one will ever know. And it's a story I've been carrying with me my entire freaking life. And I get to do it in public. And it has to do with the fact that when I was 10 years old, there was an experiment in my school where all the kids with brown eyes had to stay after school, get extra homework, and were treated less than. All the kids with blue and green eyes got to go home early, got extra credit. I have Hazel. I'm like, see, they're green when I'm happy. And she's like, no, you go with the brown-eyed kids. And all week long, we were made to feel absolutely dreadful. It was just blatant discrimination against eye color, and it was horrible. At the end of the week, the principal says, all right, everyone come in the auditorium. How do you feel? And we're protesting. And he said, look, it's 1970, Oceanside, Long Island, New York, and y'all white. You're very white. There's Jewish and Italian. There's pizza, pasta, and matzah. And one Chinese kid whose parents own the Chinese restaurant. That's it. That's the diversity in my town. Wow. In the rest of the country in America, there was a lot of segregation and stuff going on that we were not experiencing. And they want us to understand how arbitrary and foolish prejudice was. I got the message. I was pretty pissed. But two things happened. The first was kind of silly. When blue contacts came out 10 years later, I couldn't wait to get a pair because I thought maybe blue is better, right? That's crazy. That's social, environmental bullshit. And then when I got to college, my best friend was black. And I'm like, this is the best thing ever. What's wrong with black people? I love her. She's great. And I mean, I was such wonderful learning this different culture. I invited her home for Thanksgiving. I called my parents going, I'm bringing Kesha home with me. And my mom and dad going, you're not bringing any black kid into this house. And I was shocked. I'm like, I said, well, screw you. I'm not coming home for Thanksgiving. I'll go to Kesha's house, called her parents, and they very proudly said, you're not bringing a little white girl home to our neighborhood.
Wow.
Neither one of us went home for Thanksgiving that year. We stayed there and I contemplated what all this meant. And here's how it manifested for me. I thought, this doesn't work. I had just seen a play off Broadway in New York called The Me Nobody Knows. Mm-hmm. It was an urban musical in complete diversity. It was Hispanic, it was black, it was a beautiful show, right? I said, I'm going to bring that to my college. At that moment, my college had a black acting group and a white acting group. They did their own plays. And I said, this doesn't work. And I put them together. And we did this musical, and it was spectacular. 37 years later, last year, some representative from the college knocks on my door and says, I'd like to give you a plaque and a newspaper article celebrating you, that you put these groups together. And I'm like, I thought my mother was the only one who stayed on to these like newspaper clippings. And there it is. It lives in my studio. This 19-year-old girl decided that this didn't work and changed something and started a movement. And then the final part of that story, because their theme is urban mosaic. Mosaics are not good if they're all just one color. They've got to be very diverse and beautiful. Is I got a little kid from South Central, black kid. When he was 8 years old, my ex-husband and I, he became a big brother, big sister. Every weekend, Dexter was with us. All family vacations, he came with us. He had a lot of preconceptions about what white people were all about, and we spent his whole childhood just being this crazy family. And whenever we'd go somewhere, people would ask all kind of weird questions and make us, really work to, how can that be your little brother? Okay. Best man at my wedding. And right after my babies were born, 6 months later, Dexter is walking from a haircut to church. He lived in South Central, which, by the way, geographically, just so you know, is right down the street from Beverly Hills. Right down the street from USC, one of the most well-endowed schools in our country. And they're in this neighborhood, this little ghetto. And he was walking from a haircut to church, minding his own business. And another kid who wanted to get into a gang walked up behind my boy and shot him 10 times in the back to leave him to die to get into a gang. My wedding photo is on the cover of the LA Times, not a good story. And 3 years later, that kid is spending 52 years to life in jail, which doesn't make me any happier. But there was some justice for Dexter. But the bigger justice is I get to share the story in his name. And so what an odd journey from an eye color experiment that led to this, again, this arc, this one of the sub-themes of my story that has nothing to do with pitching, nothing to do with bodybuilding, nothing to do with anything else but life. Crazy.
Wow, that is. I mean, listening to all of your stories, you know what we see with social media these days and everyone pertaining to this overnight success and people not feeling enough. What would you say to people? Because one question I always ask every single successful person that's come on this show, it was Dr. Joe Dispenza, Les Brown, how long did it take Dr. Forbes Riley to become this quote unquote overnight success people see on social media?
65 years.
There you go.
You know, I am finally successful. I now know it. I now live it. In fact, when people say to me, Forbes, because I often ask the question, what do you want? What do you want? And you know what I want? I just want to be healthy enough to wake up every day and live the life I'm living. That's the definition of success, by the way. I really do think that is it. I have everything that I have wanted. I want more. Trust me, I want stuff every day. I want my new book to be a bestseller. I want to do another movie. I want to get an Oscar, an Emmy, and a Tony. I want a lot of things. But what I really, really want is just to lie in bed, hang out with Joshua, travel the world, do whatever it is that I want, and enjoy what I built. I went out to dinner with my 22-year-old son last night. When you get to where I am in life, it's a blessed place. I struggled my entire life. And by the way, I'm still working really hard. You know, yesterday I was in the studio all day shooting batch content, shooting new courses, whatever it is we're doing, because I'm never going to stop. This is just too much fun. And now that people want me, see, Glenn, there was a time when no one wanted me on their podcast or on their TV show. I am just enjoying this to no end. So when do you know you're successful? You never know. You're always going, and there's always, if you're a successful person, there's always more.
Yeah.
But I can sit back and relish, like I said, as I was having dinner with Riker last night. I remember wanting a baby so bad. I remember what I had to go through to get babies. I remember raising the babies. I remember all the crazy things that happened and looking at this cute little boy and girl twins thinking, oh, I hope I can afford. My parents had no money. Like we had a little camper at some point and we went and we stayed at RV parks. And I thought, how am I ever going to give my kids this wonderful life? And now I've taken my kids skiing and traveling around the world. I've done really well, but I created something pretty phenomenal. My children help other men and women, other entrepreneurs. They're in business and I get messages every single day that say, I love working with your kids. Riker's the most amazing. Thank you for McKenna. Who gets that? That's like the icing on the icing of the cake. Because I remember when they were little, and you're going to hear this when your kids stay over, the coolest thing you're ever going to hear is another mother going, your kids are really well behaved. They're great to be around. That's like the greatest compliment. You know you love your kids, but when somebody else thinks to say that, well, my kids are now saving lives of other people. And my daughter's the CEO of my company, and we do, like I said, we have 77,000 people in our trainings. And my son started an online platform to get people to build their websites and their landing pages. And they're both very patient and amazing. And they're giving people in their 60s and 70s landing pages, businesses that they've never had before. This whole group of people who are in my peers are like, I can't do tech. And my kids are like, yes, you can. Knock that off. Watch, my mother can do this. I can do this for you. And so I've got all this slew of people telling me that all the years that I struggled and suffered and sacrificed, all of which are true, paid off. And that's, for me, what success is.
Truly. And it's so inspiring, so inspiring. I was just going to say two quick questions for you, Forbes. This, because people, I think I can feel people like yourself would remember this. Can you remember that first time that you realized that your story or your impact or a piece of literature that you wrote really touched someone's heart and then let you know and it really affected you to know, wow, my story can change lives?
There's been so many. I started this whole online company because of my fitness product, because of a woman's life I changed. I'm sitting there during COVID and obviously life was just weird. And I've created this, like I said, a handheld fitness product that nobody wanted. I have a fitness journey and an entrepreneurial sales journey of where I was made fun of on a national TV show that devastated me, and I survived that. And it's funny because my daughter interviewed Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank not long ago. And I've known him forever. We moved down to Florida, lived in his house. And my daughter says, tell me something about my mom I don't know. And Kevin, for the first time, had never said this before. He said, your mom went through some amazingly tragic stuff when she was creating this. Some of the big heavy guns in the industry were really trying to damage her. And she came out on top. And I've always admired her. And I never heard that story. I was like shocked that he thought to tell it that way, because I tell it that way, but it sounds kind of like I'm complaining. When he said it, it's like she fought a battle and she won, and we all watched it happen. And that was a crazy, crazy journey. Now, I've got one more story. Did you hear about the accident last year?
No.
All right. So there's one more icing on the icing. And we're going to get nauseated with diabetes with all the icing, but you're in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
So I was always somehow I ended up in the fitness industry, but I ended up selling fitness. I'm really good at talking, in case you hadn't noticed, and storytelling. And so I've sold $2.5 billion worth of product in my career. It's been rather spectacular. You give me anything that you've got, I will make sure people buy it. So my kids and I'm looking for a photo here. My kids and I are in Iceland last year in March, spring break. Now, to set this up, and you'll appreciate this, and I would love your feedback. January of last year, my husband and I both did our fat scans. Have you ever done one of those?
I have, yes.
He was 9% on his off season. I, having worked in building my company for 4 years, was the highest weight that I've been short of being pregnant. I was getting kind of fluffy, and I was at 33% body fat. And my doctor told me I was pre-diabetic and a whole bunch of other things, and I was not listening. I heard it, and I'm like, whatever. I'm busy building a company. Forbes, come to the gym. I can't. I'm busy. I'm busy building a company. 5 years. I don't think I went to the gym more than 5 times. Well, that unfortunately resulted in me kind of getting large. And we are in Iceland and having a wonderful James Bond moment. We're snowmobiling on the glaciers. I am loving life. I turn around on this tour bus. I take a picture of my 2 beautiful kids. And Glenn, that might have been the last picture you ever saw of my family, because the bus squiggled and crashed.
Oh, wow.
And I am sitting right here, right behind the driver's seat. And as it flipped and fell down on its side, my face went through the windshield. Not the windshield, the glass that was next to it. Sorry, hang on a second. There we go. And that's what the inside of the bus looked like. We all crawled out the roof and survived. But we're an hour and a half from a hospital. If anybody had been seriously hurt, I tore my shoulder, could not move my arm at all, was in unbelievable amounts of pain. And we leave from there the next day. And as we're leaving, we bump into a volcano. You're like, you can't make this shit up. I mean, this is one of those, you're like, the freaking biggest volcano. Josh was like, that's a beautiful sunset. I'm like, honey, I don't think it's a sunset. So that picture, by the way, was on the cover of the LA Times. I know that because I was standing next to the guy who took it. I don't know how this is happening. I'm like out of my mind, and then the volcano's exploding. Not what you see every day. So this all led to, by the way, this is what we were doing before. Iceland is fantastic. But this is what the vision I had right before we crashed. And Joshua says to me the craziest thing in the world. He says there's a bodybuilding competition in our hometown for the first time, because we travel all around for him to compete. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Good for them. And then he says, well, there's a category for women over 60. I said, great. Good for them. And I said, why are you telling me this? I'm fluffy. Leave me alone. And something in my head, Glenn, that I'd never heard before said, go for it. And I'm like, go for what? And then I did my little research. I've watched these things. I don't own a bikini, my friend. And if I had a bikini, it was not fitting on one of my legs right now. But here's how I know that, because I took a before picture and something said, go for it. We come home. And by the way, the competition is 99 days from the day he says this. Like, it's not next year. And I got on a call with my mastermind, and there were hundreds of people on the call. And I found myself, I didn't say this. This is the Kevin Costner voice that says, if you build it, they will come bullshit. Hi, everybody. I'm going to be in a bodybuilding competition in 99 days. Wish me luck. Hung up the phone and thought, who said that? Why would you say that? What's wrong with you? And and I was out of my mind. And so I went, this is a true story, I took a before photo, and this is day 60s.
Wow.
I went on the Joshua Self fitness program, ate carnivore, and went from fluffy girl over here. This is another before and after. that just shocked me to no end. And this was the ultimate end of it. At
Wow.
64, that's my body. And this was Joshua winning his award. That's his, but I ultimately I got on stage, and I'm not 20, but I got on stage and competed with little 20-year-olds.
Incredible.
Let's see if I can find one that changes. There you go. I got a medal. I did it. I went through the whole process in 99 days, changed everything, and then walked on stage in a pair of hooker high heels. I now not only have one medal, I have three medals. I entered the Arnold and got a medal. It's a
Wow.
little in my category. But again, I dropped 35 pounds, 13% body fat in 99 days, and I made a movie about it, which I'll send you the link to.
Wow.
And I got over my PTSD. Isn't that ironic? The other thing, too, which is crazy, is I literally came home and I tore two ligaments, my bicep and my infraspinatus ligaments. And I'm sitting in the orthopedist's office, like when the day we got home, and he said, all right, you need surgery. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that right after my bodybuilding competition. And he looked at me, he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm not quite sure. And I swear to God, I was like, I don't really know what I just said because I can't lift my arm over here. But the crazy thing about Joshua's fitness program, Glenn, that you've never seen is he doesn't have you lift anything over your head. He doesn't do these because these don't work. He does a thing where you pull it in and you make your lat work that way. He does all kind of stuff, nothing overhead, which is ironically all that I could do. Now, here's the best part of the story. I didn't have surgery. How do I have my arm back?
Wow.
So, all I can tell you is I went through that story because it's a good story, isn't it?
I'm just going to really ask you quickly because, like you mentioned a little bit earlier, manifest, right? We see this thrown around everywhere. I can tell. I went on my own spiritual journey and I hear this trending word of manifestation, but you're the epitome of application. Everyone talks fluff, but your journey has clearly shown, yes, manifestation works. You can visualize and you're very good at that, but you have to put the bloody work in as well.
I love that. I'm going to write a book called Application.
Beautiful
It's
application.
all I can tell you guys is that I did it. I did everything, and I also went on a spiritual journey, and I lived in an ashram, and I've had 52 different lives because I didn't listen to. See, this is the irony. I'm going to turn this off real quick. The irony is, let's go back to that first story where this little girl couldn't communicate to others, so she chose not to have friends. I didn't like people putting me down. So my friends were TV and movie and Bewitched and the Munsters and you name it, the monkey. I watch more TV than anybody I've ever met. And in a time when there's no reruns. And they were my friends. And I was, like I said, I had two loving parents and I lived in my own head. I was a very cerebral kid. But as I got older, a lot of people listened to other people. And they're like, well, that person put me down or that person bullied me or that person's on Instagram. I've never cared.
Yeah.
I've never needed another person's approval to go do something outrageous. I've just done it and been that visionary my whole life. And when I couldn't, by the way, the story is not an easy story. This is what's really important for you guys to hear. You'll hear the successes and the peaks and the manifestations coming true, but the journey from what you want to getting it is never a straight line. And you got to be prepared for that. But it makes, again, for other great stories. So when I was in New York City and I'm having this acting career and I'm being told I need to work on my weight, it's very confusing. And beyond that, trying to get an agent. So agents are what represent you to the industry. They were all men back then. And they like to chase little 20-year-olds around a desk. Notoriously, I was like, I didn't even know what a Me Too movement was, but I lived it. One of mine, I literally got invited to a lunch at a hotel thinking it's at the base of the hotel. There's a great restaurant there. But no, it's in room 1322. I get up there and thank God this guy was little, but there was a whole food there, but I was also on the menu. I didn't know that. I'm completely naive. There's no internet. There's no any of this. And he's chasing me around the desk and I'm like, or the table and the bed. And I'm like, you're ridiculous. What the fuck? You think I'm going to do what for you? You're out of your freaking mind. It was laughable to me. That's how weird it was. But I went home and thought, well, shoot, if I can't get an agent, what do I do? So Glenn, what do you do if you can't get an agent?
I'd start it myself. I'd go out and do it myself. I'd roll my sleeves up. I'd learn the industry and I'd bloody do it myself like I did with this. I bet that's what you did.
And this is what separates all people from other people. I got a piece of stationery, said CMA, Creative Management for Artists. And I hired a woman named Lindsay Maxwell, which talks a little bit like you. And Lindsay had just one client. She had Forbes Riley, and I had her work just for me because I was her. And I talk about it. You want to talk about imposter syndrome? For 3 years, I was my own manager. Going, no, I have one client. She's absolutely wonderful. Yeah, Forbes Riley. Oh, you don't know her? Let me tell you about her. I'd make 100 calls a day. I worked more when I was my own manager than I've ever worked. And I never told that story to anybody. That because I was afraid I could get arrested. don't tell anybody.
No, see, it's funny because every time I go to LA and I know actors over there, my first reasoning to see that was a good friend sat down with their agent and said, "This is Glenn, he's just come over to LA first time." And I sat there and the agent said, "Okay, so tell me what you've done this week." And my friend listed everything off and I was confused and I was like, "Hold on a minute. Is that your agent? Why are you doing everything?" And she was like, "In this town, you have to do something because if you don't, you won't get anywhere. They've got so many people on their books." So yeah, your stories, I could listen to them all day, Forbes. But my biggest one is, what would you give to anybody out there listening to this podcast? Like, this is about mental well-being. It is about the adversity behind the successes, and people always put this, like you said, with your partner Joshua, with all the successes, they see you in front of hundreds of thousands of people. Oh, she's got it all, she's made it. But yeah, quite rightly so, the stories I just love. What would you say to anybody?
I would give them the gift of permission. In fact, I have a little permission card. It's a steel card that I made, and it says, "I hereby grant you, fill in the blank, permission to whatever you want." And I would look in the mirror and I would say that. Because one of the problems in life is that you're waiting for permission for someone else to tell you it's okay, to take that risk, to make that investment, to take that training, to go on a weight loss journey, to go on a spiritual journey. Whose permission did you ask? If you're married, you got to ask your wife or your kids, or you don't ask yourself, look in and just grant yourself. I hereby grant you permission to lose those last 35 pounds. I hereby grant you permission to let go of that abusive relationship. I hereby grant you permission to believe that you're in fact as special as you think you are. I hereby grant you permission to make a whole lot of money just because you want to. I hereby grant you permission to stop making excuses. And I could go down a list, because you waiting for someone else to tell you enough is never coming. You want to, and then because I train people all the time in this, and this is what people don't necessarily know about me. They see the pitch side, they see the commercial side, but I have, like I said, thousands of students. I do a breakthrough sexual healing trauma training. Why do I do that? Because I was molested when I was 15 years old. And, but I don't make that very public. But when it comes to mindset, you don't get where I am without this crazy belief system, a mindset shift that when you choose to do something and put it in action and then let it go and see what happens, most people are already up there at the end. It can't work. It's not going to work. It didn't work before. I'm so worried. You do all that, and guess what? Your brain will absolutely sabotage your results, so you get exactly what you said. It won't work. I have every reason to believe it will work, and I've proven it to myself over and over again, and yet every time I start a new project, there's always that, oh God, I was hoping it's successful. And then the next part of this, guess what? Fall in love with the F word. It's my favorite word. Focus. My next favorite.
I thought you were just going to say something else then.
But literally, it's, if you need to focus on one thing for a while and give it your energy, and then the next F word, oh my God, failure. I got to tell you, there's not a skincare line out there called Forbes Flawless because my company freaking failed. I discovered that if you have two partners and they don't like you or they don't want to take over, they can. And careful who you get in bed with. I learned a lot of lessons. So from failure, you learn lessons. Glenn, I talk to people every day. That word, that four-letter F word, FEAR, is killing them. I have a fear of failure. Well, okay. I have a fear of success. If you have a fear of success, guess what will avoid you? Yeah. I love success. I love money. Come follow my head. And people will tell you all the things they're afraid of. And my advice to everyone out there is to sit quietly with yourself, like I know Glenn has done. Decide what you really want. Not what society wants, not what your parents wanted, not your plan B. What do you want? And to really believe that if you're on this planet for a limited amount of time, with a few years left, what do you want to do with it? And why do you care what anyone else thinks? It doesn't matter. And so I'm grateful for not having a lot of friends. I'm grateful for not having a lot of family. My parents are gone. I'm grateful for a lot of things, but I'm also grateful. The reason that I'm in love and happily married is that I love me. And for a lot of years, I can remember not loving me. I've gone through all of that. And I will tell you, life is a beautiful journey. Buckle up and go for a ride.
Love that. Could not have ended it any better. And I think a lot of people would just pay to be around your energy. It's so infectious. The storytelling. So, yes, excuse me. I know that you've got a TEDx coming. Where can people find out more information about you, and what have you got upcoming? Probably another 10 projects by the sounds of it.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, every Sunday since COVID, I go live, me, on Zoom, and anywhere in the world you can pop in. So today is the Sunday that we're filming this, and I don't know how long I'm going to keep doing it. I've done it every Sunday for 5 years, except for Super Bowl and my birthday. And here's a free ticket to this. If you go to www.ask Forbes Riley, which is my name, I charge for it, other people, but I'm giving as a gift to everyone who listens to Glenn's podcast here, and you say, hey, I want to know about her. No cost to entry. Just show up on Friday, on a Sunday at 5 o'clock Eastern, and then whatever it is in Australia, around the world. And you'll see over 1,000 people show up to hear stories, to get their pitches, for me to work on people. And that's been a beautiful thing. So ask Forbes Riley. If you just go to my name, ForbesRiley.com, I'm all over social media. I talked about the movie that I made about my weight loss. I love my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, if you were intrigued by these stories, has a combination of things I teach, but it also has my history. And my history on YouTube goes back to 1977. The Miss Teenage America pageant is on YouTube.
Wow.
It goes back to 1978, where I'm on the $20,000 pyramid on TV at 18, and I win I get to go to the big circle. All my little TV things. There's me sword fighting. There's me hosting the X Games. You want a journey of a life? It's all on YouTube. And I just think I used to think of YouTube as a storage container. So it's got all of these things because they were all on half-inch videotape. I started the X Games. You ever see the Extreme Games for ESPN?
Yeah.
Did you know that I started this?
I didn't know that, but I do now. It doesn't surprise me.
Now, this is what it does. It's not only surprising me, it delights me to no end. So I go to my YouTube channel because I don't like to say anything that I cannot prove. Because I think some of the things I say are so fantastical, right? They're pretty out there. So if I type in, let's see, ESPN, and I'll show you something. Have you ever watched them, by the way?
Yeah. I've seen them before.
Okay, so this is me, 1995, the very first X Games.
All right, this feels almost illegal to know, but our windows were so old and just desperately needed to be repaired.
All right, so here we go. This is Stuart Scott.
And on this show, every night except Wednesday, a review of the day's best and a look ahead to the next day. Sharing in on the fun, my Extreme Games partner in crime, Forbes Riley. Oh, Forbes!
Hey, Stuart, believe it or not, this place was not just constructed for the Extreme Games. Fort Adams has a history as old as our nation. Now, a little later in our show, we're going to take a tour of this historic landmark. We'll see the cannons, the ghosts of soldiers past, and a maze of secret tunnels that lie beneath this structure. Now, they're totally off limit, but we've got some exclusive footage. Fact, there's never been an actual battle fought here at the fort until now. A battle of strength, wills, technology, and endurance, otherwise known as the 1995 Extreme Games. Are you ready for this?
Been ready.
And I gotta tell you, this was the very first X Games, and I was the co-host. It's a long story. I know we don't have time for that one, but you're like, what? How's that possible? All right, here's just one more, because I just think I'm loving watching your expression, blowing your mind. We all know.
Impress you though, like looking back over all these and just go. Wow.
I think. Let me share the funny story about that video. That video was live. It went out on a live broadcast before DVRs because it was 1995, and I never watched it. In fact, it was on a 3/4-inch tape that I couldn't play, and I had it in my stuff for years. Everyone told me how good I was. I kept thinking they were going to fire me because I don't know anything about sports. I did that job for 6 years, by the way. They never fired me. But I never saw it. And when I hired an editor to sit down and put all this stuff into YouTube, I remember the first time I saw that, and I just sat there in shock because I'm like, she's so good. All I remember is how scared that was the first time I ever did live TV. It's 12 o'clock at night in the East Coast. I am shaking. I'm freaking out going, please remember all the lines. There's no teleprompter. Ready, go. Okay, here we go. 1990. And that's all I can remember was how scared I was. I watched that and I was like, well, no wonder they didn't fire you. You're wonderful. You're adored. Look at you. Let me tell you, this is the story of my life. Has not been easy. It's been fun, but it's been a little wacko. So then I do an infomercial with Bruce Jenner about vitamins and Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler is nobody back then. All I remember, you know who Jay Cutler? You know Jay.
The bodybuilder, yeah.
Yes. Well, I've got a beautiful photo of me and Jay. Jay's massive. I don't know anything about bodybuilding. I do this thing. I finish it, and Bruce is like, "Oh my God, I need you to meet my family." And I'm like, "Okay." They were little kids at the time. Kendall and Kylie are this big. I wish I had that photo of us all sitting on the bed. I don't. But Chris says to me, I would like my daughter to be on TV. So I gave her first infomercial. First time on TV. We invited a top Hollywood stylist who's known to be the closet organizer to the stars. Please welcome my dear friend, Kim Kardashian. No one knew her.
You've seen her in all the magazines and on the E! Entertainment Network with her best friend Paris. Beautiful Kimberly Kardashian is a model and film and TV wardrobe stylist. Plus, she's busy with her two businesses doing celebrity closet makeovers and her upscale fashion store Dash in Southern California. What does this fashion pro think of the all-new Pressabella?
I'm in the fashion business, so it's really...
Did you know that? Had never been on TV before. Thank you, Forbes Riley.
That's just incredible. Like,
oh, I know.
To look back at that, it's impressive. I know. Just to go back to your story, though, was that little girl and didn't think like it's. I've got no words.
She's having the time of her life, and so what you can do for your little ones is give them opportunities, take them places. And my advice, and at some point, I really want to write a little parenting book. I experimented on my twins, and it worked. I just did the other day. I showed my son getting on stage, speaking in front of an entire audience. My daughter speaks on stage. She booked a TEDx. How did they do that? Well, because this mom over here would always bring them up on stage. I would always bring them with me to events. I let them sit in board meetings with me. My daughter was on my lap in New York City in a lawyer's office one day when I signed a massive deal, and we were doing tic-tac-toe. One hand was signing, one hand was playing tic-tac-toe. Because I said to them, I said, wherever I am, you call, and you got a special ringtone. I will pick up your, and I've done that. Even I've done that in the middle of a speech. I'm like, I hear my daughter's ringtone and I love all you guys. I know we're doing this, but I made a commitment to these these creatures that says, look, I'm your mom. I'm the anchor that you've got in this life. And as long as I'm here, I will pick up the phone and I will be there for you whenever you need me. Trust that. And that's created two very independent, amazing kids, but I still pick up the phone for them because they need to know that they're that important. Yeah. Now, it's because it's very easy to go, no, I'm busy, close the door. And I never did it. I said, I'm busy. Come on and sit on my lap. Take a meeting with me. And people would look at, I don't really care what other people thought. I know what I raised. Yeah. And they're both CEOs of their own companies. They're both very powerfully and beautiful and generous kids because they've also, come down and feed homeless kids. We've done a lot of that kind of work so they could see what life is. The two of them just went to Brazil on their own for 3 weeks and hung out and went scuba diving and enjoyed life and lived in a hostel and worked the laptop lifestyle. How do they do this? They were raised to be that. Yeah. You got to raise your kids. You can't just let the school system do it. And in fact, I'm kind of anti-school system. And so one of the things I did with my daughter, and it's going to go, but it's like legendary now, but she had a vision when she was young that said, Mom, I would really like to drop out of Stanford. And I'm like, sorry, wait, what? She said, yeah, all the great guys, they all want to drop out of Stanford. I want to do that. I'm like, you want to drop out of Stanford? All right, well, I guess you got to get good enough to get into Stanford, and then you want to drop out of it. Okay. Yeah. Well, she also then at some point said, what am I going to college for? Because she started her business when she was 12, made $1 million by the time she was 17, just as she was turning 18. She's like, what do I need to go to school for again? Just remind me, because I've hired college kids and they're stupid. The things they don't know. They don't know how to build funnels. They're talking about billboards and old advertising. And I'm like she was 14 years old. I get called in by the guidance counselor at high school. And she says, I'm like, what's going on? She says, your daughter is misbehaving. I said, really? What is she doing? She said, well, we're in class. We're in computer class. We're learning to write resumes so we can all get jobs. And she said she's never going to get a job, so she doesn't need to do this. And I looked at her and I thought, all right, how do I do this? Now, I'm always on the side of my kid. Sorry. My kid is an extension of my philosophies. Yep. And so I said to the woman, I said, how much money do you make a year? She said, excuse me? I said, you're a guidance counselor in high school. You make $62,000 a year, according to my computer. Can I share you something? This is my daughter's statement from last month. She made $62,000 in a month and she's 14. Why does she need a job? My daughter's like, Mom, really? And I'm like, McKenna, this is going to I wish we were filming this, because the woman had nothing to say. Something else that she told my daughter when I was not around, when my daughter said something about how much she wanted to build and what she was going to be doing. And the guidance counselor literally says, you need to be more realistic. And I said, we need a different school, or you need to leave the school, because we don't believe in realistic. I don't know what you're teaching kids, but maybe it's good that you teach people to be realistic so that they will work as waiters and that they will work in jobs, because my kids are never doing that. And that's fine. I remember a very long time ago, remember the singer Cher?
Yep.
Cher said in an old interview, she's glad that not everybody is a rock star, because then nobody would be taking tolls or working at the toll booth. And that's a fascinating story, that there are jobs for all of us in this world, but the people teaching our young people are teaching them to be worker bees in an institution. And when I realized that, I didn't realize it fast enough, because I would have homeschooled the kids, I think. But I also love the social aspect of what they experience. Now, again, I've lived life. My kids went to a very expensive private school from first grade to eighth, and I worked my ass off to afford that. I then made a decision and said, you know what? You're going to go to public school. I'm a public school grad. You're going to go to public school for high school. Massive culture shock. The percentages of ethnicity went from very homogenous to weirdly diverse. And my kids were subject to things that blown away. My daughter ended up getting, hit up about, you should give me money because you're a white kid. They went through all kinds of stuff. Riker was the only white kid on the entire football team. And I'm like, you know what? Welcome to the real world. Mm-hmm. You need to understand that you can, I guess, live in an isolated bubble, but I don't want you to. I want you to experience life on a lot of different levels. And they did. And it was challenging, because people looked at them as privileged, and they had to fight for themselves to go, no, we're raised kind of normal. My mom works, but and that was really helpful. I think it allowed them, when they travel the world now, they traveled to Guatemala, they've been to Nicaragua, they've been to Costa Rica on their own as teenagers. Mm-hmm. How do you do that? Well, you raise your kids to be that. So anyway, I got a whole philosophy on that. The only thing I can say is that I've got a boy and a girl, and it worked. So yours are little. One of the things that I did, and I do have to go here, sorry, was when they were really little, I played the I want game, okay? Glenn, if you ask your kids to clean their room, what do they say?
I'll do it later.
Right. Because they don't want to. Well, but this is my fundamental entrepreneurial lesson. Stop telling people what they need to do. Stop telling your kids they need to clean the room. Get them to want to clean their room. So all of a sudden you're like, I really want the room cleaned. So what do they want? Glenn, do they like dessert after dinner?
Yep.
Do they like spending time with daddy and no cell phone?
Yes. So
here's what I would do. I say, hey guys, you know what? I've got a really fun little dessert. I got chocolate chip cookies, but the only way I can give them to you is if your rooms are completely clean. And once they're clean, if they're clean in under 20 minutes, the big bonus is I will sit with you and play cards, no phone for an hour. Boom, they were gone. Room was clean.
We did.
How did I do that? Because I pitched them. I figured out what they want, and I got them to want what I wanted.
Yes.
And that, my friends, is the perfect pitch. So when you go to pitch your product, your service, your idea, I have a formula called Pitch Like a Pro. The first thing that you want to do, and it's more complicated than just giving it to you in 5 minutes here, and I invite you to come train with me, guys. I've got beautiful trainings online, all about courses, in person. I show up all the time, but getting them to want what you have. So the first thing I did was make an assumption. The assumption is, who am I talking to? I'm talking to 2 kids, okay? Or I'm talking to your entire audience. Just know who the audience is. The second thing is, what do they want? That's kind of a discovery question. So my kids wanted dessert. They want to spend time with me. As an entrepreneur, your client might want to, solve a pain. If you're a life coach, that they're tired of, struggling. If you're a fitness coach, they want to lose weight. What is the pain point? And then the big secret, giving it at the 11th hour to Glenn, is called the question flip. So guys, you want this, right? They agree. We say they want it. We're in a good state of yes. You're a fitness coach. You want to lose weight. Great. So if you want to lose weight and get fit and do it in a 6-week program that I have, you literally flip it around and they already said yes. They said yes before you asked the question. I know what you want. You guys want the cookie, right? Well, here's what I want. If you want the cookie, you clean your room. Boom, they're gone. That's my system. That's how I've sold $2.5 billion, give people what they want. Because y'all say to me, oh, Forbes, you're so good. You could sell ice to Eskimos. And you know what I say? I'm way smarter than that. Eskimos don't need ice. They need firewood and blankets. So I don't have to work so hard to sell it to them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I've loved this opportunity to actually chat and listen to you. And I know that you've got to go. And even on the 11/11, this interview finished. Look at that. There's something about that. So that's your manifestation thing. But yeah, I just want to say thank you. We're going to put all the links up to where people can find out about your training, more about yourself. And I will say before we go, tell Joshua as well if he wants to come on and talk about his journey, because bodybuilding, body dysmorphia, all of that would be incredible.
Oh, you've got it. He's a little shy, but when he talks, he's one of the most beautiful men. So Glenn, I'm going to take you up on that. You guys, I also have a book coming out. It won't be out for a little while, but Glenn, I would love to let you know that, called Pitch Secrets A to Z. A lot of insight into how you can finally in life get what you want. When you know what I know, I promise you, that's the joy of living this long. I figured some stuff out and I want to pass it on to you so I can have a legacy.
Oh, amazing. And when's your life story coming out, folks? Come on.
You know, right? I think we just did it. Let's publish this one. I adore this interview. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.